on pace for 26 goals, 78 assists, 104 points. He has never hit the 100-point plateau in his NHL career. In 6 games since Austin Matthews went down, 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 points, plus 4, 6 power play points, 14 shots on goal, 28.6% shooting percentage. It's been the talk of the town the last couple days. We all knew it was coming, very similar to last November. It was all the Nylander chatter. Extend Mitch Marner, Rosie, is my question to you.
I think if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, why do you benefit from doing it right now? Like, what's the benefit here? We know he's kind of going to be about a 100-point player. He's been very close. He hasn't been a 100-point player, but 99 or 90, like he's right there. By all accounts, he's going to have his best year this year in his prime. He's on a contract year. He's taken a lot of heat in the summertime. He's going to have a big year. Like you say, he's on fire, and people are like, oh my God, well, if he continues to be on fire like he is, he'll end up with 104 points, right? That's a pace he's on. It's not earth-shattering thing. He's not putting up 150. It's what you kind of would expect for Mitch Marner, but everyone knows he's capable of doing that. It's not like people talk about this as if it's is Mitch Marner a good player conversation. Everyone agrees with that. Everyone agrees with that. It's, do you want to give him $13 or $14 million and lock into the same group of players that you've had for 8 years that have done nothing? That's the question. So you're just going to say, yep, again, after running it back and running it back and running it back. You're just going to say, yep. He's not doing anything that we didn't expect. He's still the same guy. The question is he going to get us over the hump in the playoffs? You could rattle off a whole bunch of numbers of elimination games, deciding series games. He's bagels across the board, right? No one cares anymore if you get a 99 points or 104 points. It's awesome. It means you're a good player, but are you a great player that should demand $14 million? You have to do that shit in the playoffs. And that's the only, especially with the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're the only organization that has just floundered so bad after all these good seasons in the playoffs, come up short, ridiculously disgusting and sad and frustrated fan base. Okay, Mitch, you want $13 million. We might give it to you very, very well. But if you get us to the second and third round and you show up in the elimination games and you score those big goals and you play playoff hockey, I say you have no choice but to sign the guy. But just because he's hot in November, no, don't give him the bag, because it'll mean nothing if they get fucking swept in the first round by whoever, and then you're left with the same thing. It's like, well, we'll just go do it again in the fall. Like, we can't keep doing that.
First off, my Leafs team has a pecking order. So firstly, nobody's making over Austin Matthews. That's 13.25 per season. On top of that, I still have serious question if I like Mitch Marner more than Willie Nylander. Right now, I don't. I think Nylander is a better all-around player. I think he's just better in general. I have more trust in Nylander. I think I echo a lot of what you're saying when it comes to the question. I know people are going to spark up with it. You know what you're going to get from Marner. He's going to be great in the regular season. I guess like the response to your initial question was maybe the price goes up over the next couple months. But I don't know about you. Like, there's probably a dollar amount where I'm not going over to begin with anyway. So I don't care how much he wants, right?
Exactly. Like you said, he's not going to make more than Austin Matthews. That's just that. Why the hell would you get more than Austin Matthews? Is the answer to that? No. End of discussion. You can walk if you're going to hold out for more than Austin. You're not better than Austin. You're not more valuable than Austin. The end of discussion. And it's also like, yes, he's a two-way player, and yes, he can kill penalties, and yes, like all those things are great, but you need to have that clutch factor. You need to show and prove what this organization needs. You haven't done enough to earn that status, and waiting is only going to benefit the Maple Leafs.
Mhm.
Like you said, his stock's he's going to get 104 points, and his stock's already higher. It was already at that level this summertime, right? It'll depend on what he does in the playoffs. That's the only thing that matters, and you have to wait and see what happens, in my mind, because he's done this before, and no one's knocked him about not being able to put up points and not having good regular seasons. They've knocked him for going into a shell and becoming abysmal in the playoffs, and not just the playoffs, but the Leafs can get to that point where they have elimination games, or they get to the game 7 with Boston, or they do these things and he's bagels across the board. If you're going to pay that guy and give him that tag, he has to have that clutch factor. He has to be able to get this group over the hump. And And it's just so tough. It's such a handcuff because,
Yeah.
well, you can let him walk for nothing if that doesn't happen. That's devastating. Yeah, you open up the cap, but I think the Nashville Predators showed you can't just go shopping and build a Stanley Cup winning team. It's a very, very tough one, and people are invested in it emotionally with Mitch being around here for a long time and being by all accounts a good guy. It's a very tough one, of course. Just like we called, he's lighting it up in the regular season so far.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And if let me phrase it this way: if we get to the Stanley Cup playoffs and the Leafs go on this colossal run, and Mitch Marner's putting up like a point and a half a game, 2 points per game, really making a difference, got a couple OT winners, I would feel way more comfortable giving this guy the bag. That's what he's going to get, regardless of the number. It's going to be a shit ton of money, and people are throwing into the conversation. I guess the cap's going to go up to 97 mil. At least that's the prognostication. That's why I think he could end up being closer to Matthews than people think because the cap's going up. It ends up being the percentage of the cap. But for me, it's more, as you said, about the playoffs. If he can prove it in the playoffs, I feel more comfortable paying the guy. But until then, I think it would be the most foolish thing I've ever seen in pro sports to run it back before you get a peek behind that curtain with a new head coach as to what this team looks like in the playoffs. And I would have the same conversation for John Tavares. I think you keep that cap space open. If you got to make those decisions where you're bringing both these guys back, then so be it. But I want to see something first. So plain and simple, Rosie.
I know it is tough. I mean, with the cap going up, John's going to take what, a $6 million haircut that you're going to open up, and then you give a boost to Mitch Marner if you do sign him. You still got some room to work with there, but again, you've gone out and you've got the Rileys and you've got the Domies and you went and got the Bertuzzis. The bottom line is those little pieces haven't affected enough change. It's those big boys, and are the playoffs are the only thing that matters. So I don't know if you can. Is there any way to go through the playoffs and then still deal their contracts or their rights or
No.
get a deal done that
Yeah,
you're
they
thinking
can
it's one or the
they
other?
can they can trade their rights, but they're not going to get anything. Like
It's
you're not
brutal.
going to
It's
get
just
like a
so
first
brutal because you
plus.
want to
Yeah.
wait and the players have put the Leafs in this position. Like, you're that good, but you've failed this bad when we matter. So, like, how much stock do you put into what? Are you signing him based on his regular season performance and what he does on 82 games, which is very impressive, yes, or are you signing him based on what he does in the playoffs, which, especially for the Maple Leafs, is the only thing that matters these days? No one's talking about their great seasons or their finishing here or there, how many 116 points to this or that. No one's talking about that because no one cares. The only thing that matters is that playoffs. And I don't want to sign Mitch Marner until I know if he can do anything different in the playoffs. And so far, I'm leaning towards, that worries me because of what he's shown us in the playoffs. And it's just not good enough. Like, how could people argue that? They'll pull up these stats from the playoffs and this, that, or regular season. Okay, fine, but like, why haven't they gotten over the hump if he's so good and they have this team? And I don't know. And again, people always point at the defense and the goaltenders. Well, the defense and goaltenders have been fine in the playoffs. It's just been a complete lack of scoring and perimeter hockey and pulling up. And maybe Craig Berube can get this group playing in a certain style of hockey where it comes to playoff time. And Mitch Marner does play like he's been playing in the regular season now, and he does put up those points. And he does chip at guy and blow the guy's doors off and drive to the net and make this play, or play playoff hockey, which he just hasn't done. So it's so up in the air. Nobody knows. I don't know what the answer is, dude. I don't know what the answer. I get why people say, "Are you insane to let this guy walk?" I get why they say that. I don't really want to let him walk. It's just we can't make a decision until we see what happens, and you can't see what happens until it's too late to make a decision.
The chat's more in majority of waiting till after this season, but there's a couple guys. I don't know if they're trying to troll Mr. Relaxations in that conversation where I think they're beaking me for having the same take as you, but there's nothing wrong. Like we're echoing the same sentiments. And I think the majority of Leafs Nation feels that way. Dude, I'll drive that dude to the airport. I'll tell you right now, I'll drive him to the airport. If it means going to free agency and opening up cap space and doing something else with that money, then so be it. I think it's a definition of insanity if you're going to be like, you know what? You haven't done anything in the playoffs. We're still going to pay you because we don't want to lose you. I think that's so idiotic. So
They've
idiotic.
they've already done it. They've already
Yeah.
done it, and it hasn't
But dude,
worked.
let me ask you this. You have more trust in Austin Matthews and Nylander over a Marner in the playoffs?
So far from what I've seen in the
Yeah.
playoffs, yes. I think that Austin speaks for himself, and Willie has got that clutch gene and that little fur your brow, go shove it up everyone's ass with the big moment and the big goal in the big moment. And
Yep.
Mitch hasn't proven that he's like that. He's had many, many, many opportunities to do so. If you're that good and you're a big franchise tag player that gets the bag, everyone that's gotten that bag has done something in the playoffs, has done something to get them to the next round, has scored the overtime winner, has gotten the G-dub to get them to the next round, has tied the game up late to salvage game 4. Like, he just doesn't do any of that. He's like a ghost in the playoffs. He goes to the perimeter and stick handle, cuts back, and then does a little drop pass and fucking starts back checking. It's like, we don't want that anymore. We don't want that anymore. We can't keep committing to this. I know these guys are good players and you're married to them mentally, but if it's not working, you can't keep running it back. We were talking about running it back like 2-3 years ago. Keep doing it, man. It's like sometimes the ingredients in the bowl don't work well together. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the individual ingredients, but and now they're handcuffed to timing. So a very polarizing conversation that's only going to get stronger as we get closer and closer to trade deadline. I just think it'll be impossible if the team's doing anything what it is right now and he's playing anything what he is right now. It'll be impossible to justify trading him at the trade deadline.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.